Good evening. I'm Leland Vittert. Few groups of people are more ridiculed than mall cops. Why soldiers on the southern border say that's exactly what they have become. Plus, why all the studies saying your evening glass of wine is good for you, well, they might have been wrong. First this evening, it's January 20th, 1 year since inauguration. Today is when the White House wanted to roll out a bunch of plans for the coming year, a reset, if you will. Instead, they spent it cleaning up major messes from yesterday's 2-hour presidential press conference. Mr. Biden, along with his vice president and press secretary, spent the day trying to set the record straight. First on Ukraine. Here's Mr. Biden a few hours ago.
I've been absolutely clear with President Putin. He has no misunderstanding. If any assembled Russian units move across the Ukrainian border, that is an invasion.
The problem is, yesterday, Mr. Biden was anything but clear, appearing to leave open the possibility that Putin could take parts of Ukraine without a response from the United States or NATO.
It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and then we end up having a fight about what to do and not do.
Those comments cut his Secretary of State off at the knees. Antony Blinken has been spending the past couple of days with allies in Europe. He meets with the Russians in Geneva just a few hours from now. And those comments by President Biden earned a stunning rebuke from the Ukrainian president. Admiral James Stavridis, former Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, joins us to break down what Vladimir Putin takes from President Biden's comments. But first, the White House is now 24 hours into trying to find an answer for our White House correspondent's very simple question. Here once again is Allison Harris and the president.
Speaking of voting rights legislation, if this isn't passed, do you still believe the upcoming election will be fairly conducted and its results will be legitimate?
Well, it all depends on whether or not we're able to make the case to the American people that some of this is being set up to try to alter the outcome of the election.
Taken at face value, the president openly questioned the legitimacy of this year's midterm elections. It is a Pandora's box for Democrats who spent a year ridiculing President Trump and Republicans for the same kind of rhetoric about 2020. So today, rather than a chance to lay out an agenda for year 2 of the administration, the vice president faced tough questions from what was supposed to be a victory lap interview on the Today Show.
If I may finish. But the specific question, if you don't mind, does he think, now that these bills haven't been passed, that the 22 midterms won't be legitimate?
Let's not conflate issues. We, as America, cannot afford to allow this blatant erosion of our democracy, and in particular, the right of all Americans who are eligible to vote to have access.
Other administration officials, including the press secretary, had varying answers today to that very same question. Phil Wegman, RealClearPolitics White House correspondent, joins us now. He picked up on the president's answer in real time and tried to get him to clarify, and there was sort of a word salad there. Phil, when you think about this, was the White House looking at this as, hey, a gaffe by the president, or was he speaking the truth that they are looking to see how 2022 is going to go and then make a decision about whether they view it as legitimate?
Well, first of all, props to Allison for asking what was an excellent question. I was just there to follow up. And I think that when I spoke with the president and I asked him specifically about whether or not he thought that the 2022 elections would be legitimate after Allison asked her question, and I cut him off to ask specifically about the coming midterms, he told me that it could easily be illegitimate. And today we see the administration sort of walking that back. But as you noted, Vice President Harris, she had a tough interview. So also did House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, the fellow who is probably most responsible for making Biden president. And these are varying responses from the administration, because their argument initially was that democracy is being eroded. These two bills in Congress needed to be passed to preserve democracy. Well, what happens when those bills fail?
Right. If you set it up that way, it's hard to say that something can be legitimate if the bills fail. There's two polls that are dealing now with the president's approval rating. One is approval, 56 disapprove, 43% approval. A lot of people were talking about that yesterday. This is the poll we thought was more interesting, the one that was just up. Should the president run for re-election in 2024? 28% say yes, only 28%. 48% of Democrats say yes. I'm wondering if the White House feels any of that has to do with how the president has morphed in a year from being the return to normal sort of unifier in chief to this scorched earth, if you're not me, you're with the racists rhetoric. Here's you asking him about that yesterday.
And I know that you dispute the characterization that you called folks who would oppose those voting bills as being Bull Connor or George Wallace, but you said that they would be sort of in the same camp.
No, I didn't say that. Look what I said. Go back and read what I said and tell me if you think I called anyone who voted on the side of the position taken by Bull Connor that they were Bull Connor. And that is an interesting.
He kind of didn't really like you asking that question. And what struck me about it was he is the one who made the comparison. Why don't you think he's standing by it?
Well, I want to be really clear. I did not say that the president was saying that any of his opponents were George Wallace or Bull Connor. In fact, I was just noting that he himself had rejected that argument from Republicans. And I was trying to launch into a larger question about how now that they feel offended by that binary that he set out in Georgia, how does he expect to work with them? Well, the president
instead, you hit a raw nerve for sure.
And after that, the president sort of questioned in real time my ability to read and write. So I went back again and read the quote that all of us have been reading for a long time. And also, if you look at the New York Times coverage of that speech, the paper of record was very clear that the president left very little distinction between anyone who would vote against these voting proposals and those segregationists. In fact, Senator Dick Durbin, the number 2 ranking Democrat in the Senate, was also asked by CNN's Jake Tapper about the comparison. Right. And he even said, well, maybe the president went too far. So clearly, that's a raw nerve. In regards to the polling, well, we learned from the president yesterday that he said verbatim, he doesn't believe the polls.
And then he started talking about cable news ratings. But I want to get back because you were asking a very legitimate question. The line the president said, do you want to be on the side of Dr. King or George Wallace? Do you want to be on the side of John Lewis or Bull Connor? Pretty clear comparison. And we all heard the speech. You were trying to ask a question about it. Why was the president backtracking from it?
I think that the president would probably like that comparison back. The administration has been increasingly aggressive when it comes to these voting reforms, but they've known the entire time that the political arithmetic is not going to change in the Senate. At issue here, though, at least from a purely political calculus, is that while that rubric that the president presented in Georgia probably was something that they were hoping to go after Republicans with, they ended up catching Senators Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin up in that same comparison. And so rather than asking about Republicans after the president interrupted me, my question was, well, do you think that it was going to work? And he gave a varied answer.
Yeah, we asked the same question on the show, which is if you're trying to win friends and influence people, is calling them racist if they don't agree with you the way to win people over. It was interesting. The president wasn't happy with you, and the former president, when you asked a few questions, has not been happy with you. Back to March 2020, Phil Wegman and President Trump. Take a listen.
I know you're trying to make a big deal out of it, but you shouldn't be. I'm sure you're a wonderful investigative reporter. You should go to the hospital and find out why.
What is it about these news conferences that seem to elicit sometimes these really testy responses? And forgive me for making the comparison, but some of the ways President Biden acted yesterday, there were some Trump-esque flourishes. I don't believe the polls, talking about cable news ratings, arguing with reporters like you who was asking a question.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have to tell this to you, Leland. I mean, when you ask politicians tough questions, sometimes they get annoyed. I mean, this is your life; you live this every day. And clearly, the current president was a little bit ruffled by my question. The previous president made it clear when he was unhappy with my line of questioning too. But this is such a small price to pay. No one's crying any tears that that the president raised his voice at me. And frankly, if any president wants to get a little irate or testy during a press conference, that's fine, so long as there's a press conference to begin with.
You are a cool pro under pressure, and that was evident yesterday. It was evident with the former president as well. Hey, Phil, we're always glad to see you, and glad you're getting some of the due you deserve, all right?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you. There's a lot of news coverage about the probes into former President Trump, but not a lot of actual news. Today, we got real news. And the one investigation you hear the least about in the news is likely the one you need to pay the most attention to. A grand jury may soon investigate whether or not the former president tried to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. The district attorney in Fulton County, that's near Atlanta, submitted the request today. Now a group of judges will decide whether or not jurors can be seated. Here's a timeline of how we got to this point. Just over a year ago, Mr. Trump asked the Georgia Secretary of State to find votes to help him win the state, to reverse the election. The next month, the Fulton County DA launched a criminal probe. In October of last year, the Secretary of State suggested he may not cooperate, although he said today his office has worked with investigators, which brings us to today. A majority of the Fulton County judges must approve the DA's request before jurors can be seated. One of the pieces of evidence they will hear is this recorded call from January 2nd between then-President Trump, looking for more votes, and Georgia's Secretary of State. Tamar Hallerman, senior reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, has been covering this since the very beginning. Any reason to think there's not going to be a grand jury?
Well, at this point, it's looking very likely. These special grand juries, which is what DA Fani Willis is requesting here in Georgia, are very rare, but it seems to be that when they are requested, they generally are adhered to. The judges generally grant them. And this is different from a normal grand jury, from what you would normally get in Fulton County. There are two right now that are running concurrently. Your average juror sits for about 2 months on that panel. They hear often hundreds of different cases, every type of felony murder, any type of kind of city case that comes before them. What DA Willis is requesting this time is a special grand jury that can sit for as long as prosecutors need, and they'll be focused on this one specific issue, which a lot of legal observers that I've talked to said could be very beneficial to her, given how complicated and drawn out people are expecting this case to be.
Certainly, any kind of time you get into something like this is complicated. The grand jury has subpoena power. That's the big difference, and that's obviously why DAs love to use it, and they also meet in secret. This is how the president responded. My phone call to the Secretary of State of Georgia was perfect, perhaps even more so than my call with the Ukrainian president, if that's possible. No more political witch hunts. What this civil special grand jury should be looking into is not my perfect phone call, but the large-scale voter fraud that took place in Georgia. What do you make of the split where you've got a Democratic DA and then you've got Republicans both at the governor's mansion and then also in the Secretary of State's office? How's that going to play out in this investigation?
Sure. I mean, you talked to the DA, and she wrote this in her letter to the Fulton County Superior Court judge today. She sees herself as kind of the only party that's kind of hasn't been touched by Trump throughout his kind of entire campaign to reverse the election results in Georgia. He called Governor Kemp to get him to call a special session of the legislature. He called Attorney General Chris Carr, urging him not to fight a Texas lawsuit that sought to overturn the results in Georgia and several other states. He, of course, called Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. He fired the U.S. attorney based in Atlanta, or at least he was pressuring him to be involved in all this. So in her eyes, she sees herself as the only party that was not involved in this case. So in her eyes, she very much has jurisdiction here.
So Tamar, but
Republicans, they're angry.
Yeah, no, Republicans obviously in Georgia are going to be angry about this. The But I'm wondering about this DA, because you think about Leland James, the Attorney General of New York, who's also investigating the president. It's clear she's got a partisan axe to grind, so much so that she's tweeted about it, right? She tweeted that she's part of the resistance, on and on and on. Does the DA in Fulton County have any of those partisan issues in her past that the president can use to attack her impartiality or seeking justice credentials?
She actually has very much a law and order reputation and worked for almost 20 years in the Fulton DA's office and was known very much as kind of a law and order prosecutor. She was criticized for going too hard in kind of her signature case against the Atlanta public schools, school teachers and principals who got caught up in a cheating scandal. That's kind of what she's best known for. Of course, there are plenty of people who say she shouldn't be going after Trump. We have a giant backlog of cases here in Fulton County, some 11,000 cases, many of them quite violent. And so people are saying, why are you going to spend all of this time and money and resources?
Yeah, Tamar, it's an excellent point, and obviously Atlanta's had some of the same crime problems. Real quick, is there any discussion of a governor's pardon or a preemptive pardon on this for the former president?
Not that I've heard.
Got it. Hey, great reporting, and obviously a lot more on this case. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we move to Texas now, where Governor Greg Abbott is spending billions of his citizens' money to protect the southern border, a job normally left to the federal government. The effort from the state of Texas, Operation Lone Star, includes the Texas Rangers and Highway Patrol. We have reported on it extensively. It also involves the National Guard. Here's from the New York Times, where basically mall cops, Texas Guard members on border mission. Governor Greg Abbott deployed thousands of Texas National Guard members to the Texas-Mexico border, but soldiers complain of difficulties in seemingly rudderless mission. The governor has turned securing the border into a campaign issue. It's a popular one. Texas faces the brunt of President Biden's border policies that have led to an explosion of illegal immigrants coming across the Rio Grande. The numbers are up from 2020 to 2021, fourfold from 2019. Sources at the border tell us right now those numbers are likely going to be even higher for 2022. Raul Reyes is an immigration attorney, joins us now. Good to see you, sir. We appreciate it. At some point, I get the New York Times reporting, but if the federal government's not going to do its job, does the governor of Texas have a choice but to at least try?
Well, this involves some logistical as well as legal considerations. What the governor of Texas does have the legal right to call up his state guard, the National Guard within his state, and groups like the Texas Rangers. But the Supreme Court has ruled as recently as 2012 in U.S. v. Arizona that immigration is a federal matter. So it does seem like when you look at it from a broad viewpoint, like we have this crisis at the border with a lot of migrants coming in that the federal government clearly cannot process quickly enough. And then the governor sees a potential source of manpower. So it seems like an easy fix or a logical fix. But the reason why it hasn't worked out that way, in part, goes to the type of work that the Border Patrol does. Border Patrol agents, they receive very specialized and elite training. They work in extreme weather conditions. They're required to know the basics of immigration law, to be proficient in Spanish, and to bring in a group of outsiders, no matter how well trained in other areas or well-intentioned, certainly, it often hinders more than it helps the mission. And when you look at it,
hold on. I mean, I spent time down there with the Border Patrol and then also with the National Guard back in September. You can't argue with the Operation Lone Star successes. 900 pounds of fentanyl, 100,000 or so migrants stopped, 9,000 sent back, 360 criminal referrals. The argument goes, right, that the National Guard is there to supplement the Border Patrol because the Border Patrol is overwhelmed. Them working observation posts and doing sort of the back end services, even if it is mall cop work, frees up more Border Patrol agents. In my reporting, at least, there was not a single Border Patrol agent who complained to me that the Guard was there.
Right, and the term mall cop was used by I believe an anonymous source at the time. So I feel like even that term denigrates the work that the National Guard is doing in Texas at this moment, and that's not my intention. But think of it this way: from the point of view of the Texas State Guard and the National Guard who are down at the border, they are not empowered to, they just do not have the power to conduct law enforcement actions. And their mission, as the governor of Texas has stated, is to help deter illegal migration and also to help protect Texas from drug traffickers and drug smugglers. And the fact is, if they happen to see illegal migrants crossing the border right in front of them, they cannot do anything. If
Well,
they see
yeah,
traffickers or suspected traffickers, they cannot do anything. And then Texas has had, now this is a fixable issue, but Texas has also had a host of logistical problems where these Guard members, they are not receiving pay properly.
Right, yeah, no,
they are in
there's
very
two parts of the
crowded
story.
conditions, and they haven't received their proper
Right.
equipment. I think that's why some of the morale is low.
Yeah, there's no question that there's some issues down there. Slight correction, they
For
can
sure.
do something. They
Those
can
are fixable issues, by the way.
They can call in, yeah, and true, and they can call in help, and they can tell the Border Patrol where they're seeing people and what's going on. But you make some great points. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you. All right, Russian tanks are perched at the Ukrainian border. Can anything Secretary of State Antony Blinken says to the Russians tomorrow stop them? The Supreme Allied Commander of NATO from a few years ago is with us. And Beijing says it's ready to welcome Olympic athletes, but China's zero COVID policy appears to be collapsing. New video of the lockdown may make competitors think twice about their trip. The Chinese tactics when we come back. Beijing has been transformed into a giant anti-COVID fortress ahead of the Olympics, but the country's zero COVID policy is failing. They are seeing multiple outbreaks in Beijing. Just to recap what we are looking at with the Games 2 weeks away. Besides COVID threatening to overwhelm the entire Olympics, there's no real snow for any of the events because it doesn't really snow in Beijing. There's no spectators allowed to watch the events, and the government has threatened to, quote, punish any athletes that make political statements. This is before we even get into the ongoing genocide of the Uyghurs by the Chinese that they don't really like to talk much about. Adam Carolla joins us now. All right, Adam, is this going to be the worst Olympics ever?
Absolutely. I mean, just not having anyone witness the Olympics. You know, we've seen hockey games out of Canada played in stadiums. By the way, hey, Canada, guess who kicked your ass in hockey? Florida. Think about that. Think about that, you stupid Canucks. Here's my point. I was watching it, and I was thinking, this is what China's doing. And then I thought Sweden had a slightly different approach to COVID than China, the exact opposite. Guess which way California went? California went the China route versus the Sweden route when it came to COVID. Really just think about that concept for a second. What does China want to do? What does Sweden want to do?
You're joining us from California, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You know, it's interesting, though. Something's happening in California as well as the Super Bowl. If it actually does happen because of what's going on in Los Angeles. But it's interesting, ESPN's not sending reporters to Beijing. NBC won't send sports announcing teams to the 22 Winter Olympics. They say because of COVID. But you think a big part of this is a little bit of fear of the Chinese tactics and they seem undeterred by anything?
It just seems like a horrible time to go to China. You know, if you really just think about that concept.
If there is a good time, but
if there is a good time. But I mean, this seems like the worst in recent memory, the worst time to go to China. And then, you know, they're going to hack into everything. No one's allowed to bring their phones. Can you imagine telling a 19-year-old snowboarder you don't get to bring your phone somewhere? It's physically impossible.
Well, right. And the Chinese also aren't sure they want you to bring your phone because you might tweet about what the Chinese are doing. I've never even heard of this in the Olympics. The Chinese motto for the Olympics is unity and collective effort, embodying the core values and vision of the Olympic movement and the goal of pursuing world unity, peace, and progress. And then they said this to all the athletes: any behavior or speech that is against the Olympic spirit, especially against the Chinese laws and regulations, are subject to certain punishment. That's from the organizing director. You can imagine that the athletes have got to be terrified. As hard as you would work to get to the Olympics, I'm not sure I would go if I had the option to participate.
I mean, obviously your heart breaks for these kids,
yeah, the athletes,
these Olympians, because they had, you know, when you lose in the playoffs in football, you have to wait about 5 months and then you can get back onto the field again. These people have to wait 4 years. And by the way, 4 years when you're 45 is a long time. 4 years when you're 19 or 22 or at the end of your Olympic career just means you're never You're never coming back.
Yeah, I think actually it was my grandmother who was going to go to the Olympics in field hockey and couldn't because of World War II. Never got the opportunity again after the 1940 Olympics were canceled. On the issue about sort of whether or not the athletes are going to be allowed to come back to America with their medals, Jen Psaki said this. Take a listen.
Does the president have any concern about the well-being and safety of American athletes as they head to China in this very tumultuous time?
The president made a very clear decision about not sending a diplomatic delegation. Obviously, that wasn't for security purposes. That was sending a clear message about human rights and our concerns about the treatment of Uyghurs.
That was hardly a full-throated promise to bring every American home.
It is funny that she starts almost every presser with the president was crystal clear on his message. The president's not crystal clear about anything. Have you heard the president speak? This notion, Jen Psaki's always like, the president was very clear about, and then she goes and explains what he wasn't clear about. So no, stop prefacing every conversation with the president was clear. The president is almost never clear.
Yeah, and certainly he hasn't been clear in any way that if something happens to an American athlete, we're going to take action against China. That has not been said. Kind of stunning.
Well, I got to say, whoever was left behind in Afghanistan, that's got to be running through the mind of a young person who's going to China. He's fine with leaving folks behind.
Well, and you think about the Americans who are still being held in Russia and in other places. I want to get your thought on this because you are truly a fashion icon. We can look at you and see that your thoughts on these matters are important. Have you seen the new uniforms?
Yes. I do not hate them nearly as much as you. I'm not going to say I like them. I'm just going to say I don't hate them.
You don't hate? Would you wear them? If we sent you some, would you wear them?
Well, if it was cold enough outside, perhaps.
It was cold. The one that I really love is the one with the cowboy hat. And it's Winter Olympics, so it's tough. But back in, I think it was 84 that we have the ones with the cowboy hats? We have some previous years. Some of these were just
Calgary was the cowboy hat one.
And Sarajevo in 84. Calgary,
Sarajevo.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Albertaville, Lillehammer. Yeah, it's hard to make these things look good. Maybe next time, rather than calling Ralph Lauren, they should just call you.
I totally agree. I would go with any headgear but the yarmulke. I just don't feel like that instills fear in the heart of your opponent.
I don't know. If Sarat Makal is coming at you wearing yarmulkes, you might think differently. Adam Carolla, it's good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Leland.
All right. As you sip, this says slip. As you sip on that nightly glass of wine, just to take the edge off, you are comforted by all the heart-healthy aspects. There may be a problem with that logic. We'll explain when we come back. Wine in moderation is good for your health. Music to everyone's ears. And we've all seen the headlines stating that a certain amount of wine can lower your blood pressure, protect your heart, improve your cardiovascular condition. It is why I am a paragon of health. But the World Heart Federation says all those studies aren't true. In fact, more than 2.4 million deaths across the world in 2019 were attributed to alcohol. That's more than 4% of all deaths globally. The WHF says, quote, to date, no reliable correlation has been found between moderate alcohol consumption and a lower risk of heart disease. The ever-changing headlines is enough to make you want to drink. With that, we join in Dr. Lucy McBride, internist, fellow for Bloomberg New Voices. Boy, say it ain't true. That was so good while it lasted.
Well, I hear you loud and clear. But I think the most important takeaway from this whole conversation is that there's really never been, and there still isn't, any sort of right or wrong amount of alcohol to drink. It really requires context. And my two main questions to patients when we're talking about alcohol and their consumption in my office are, number one, how much are you drinking? And number two, let's talk about your relationship with alcohol, because there are some people for whom no alcohol is healthy, right? If you're in recovery from alcohol abuse, for example. And then there are people with heart conditions for whom a moderate amount of alcohol is fine. It's part of the fabric of their social life. So this really requires context and not so much, fine tuning and looking at these studies to make decisions in people's actual everyday lives.
It's weird though, because every week or 2 weeks you get one of these studies. Okay, eat salmon, eat 4 Snicker bars, eat whatever, and you're going to be fine. 2021 wine and blood pressure, drinking 2.8 glasses of red wine per week lowered your blood pressure, but no more than 1 drink for women, 2 for men. How is this true of sort of every, and that's from the American Heart Association, is this sort of skepticism and individuality that you point out important no matter what the study is, whether it's alcohol or anything else?
So that's exactly my point, right? So if someone doesn't drink, for example, and I knew that wine was good for them, I wouldn't recommend starting to drink because alcohol carries other risks, right? I mean, it's not a harm-free substance. We have to use context and nuance. And I think one thing the pandemic has really taught us is how valuable it is to have a relationship with a primary care doctor, to put your kind of behaviors and habits and everyday life in context with your unique health conditions, because there really is no one-size-fits-all prescription. It's not like I write a prescription for drinking alcohol. I really am also not absolutist. I don't tell people never drink alcohol because the study shows it's not good for you. Alcohol is part of, people's social life and everyday life, and it's a fine substance to use as long as you have a relationship with it that's appropriate.
In a broader sense of all of these studies, half the time, it's something about how, hey, sugar's not that bad for you, sponsored by the candy industry, or alcohol is great for you, sponsored by the Napa wine producers.
Right. I mean, you have to be careful where these studies are coming from. As you know, every single day we're seeing pop-up studies all the time, and we have to take the entire body of evidence. And then, of course, again, when it comes to something like alcohol, we have to understand that there are studies and there is real life. There is the real everyday behavior of a person or a patient in my office. Yeah. And, that conversation is nuanced. It's not about, drink 1 glass a day and that's it. I mean, people are not robotic.
We're past 5 o'clock, so, I don't know. I might have to have a glass of wine. Glass of wine tonight, and I will toast your advice. Doc, it was good to see you. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, we want to know what you think on this. How would your relationship with your family change if you didn't have that 1, maybe 2 glasses of wine? Let us know. Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Leland Vittert. We'll hear some of your thoughts tomorrow. Coming up, President Biden has been forced to clarify his comments on Ukraine amid new signs Russia is moving closer to invade. How much damage has been done when we come back?
It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and then we end up having a fight about what to do and not do.
The Ukrainian president didn't much like President Biden appearing to give the Russians tacit approval for an invasion of his country. Tweeting, "We want to remind the great powers that there are no minor incursions and small nations, just as there are no minor casualties and little grief from the loss of loved ones. I say this as the president of a great power." Reasonable people can disagree if Ukraine is a great power, but President Biden's comments caused big problems. So much so that at an event today for infrastructure, he had to clean up the Ukraine mess. Take a listen.
I've been absolutely clear with President Putin. He has no misunderstanding. If any assembled Russian units move across the Ukrainian border, that is an invasion.
Retired U.S. Navy 4-star Admiral James Stavridis, former Supreme Allied Commander with NATO, joins us now. He's also the author of the new book, The Sailor's Bookshelf, 50 Books to Know the Sea. Admiral, good to see you. We appreciate it. I'm wondering, when Putin heard it's one thing if it's a minor incursion, what did he think?
I think for a brief, exuberant moment, he thought, okay, I've got a little flickering green light. Fortunately, as you pointed out in the piece, Leland, the entire world cleaned that up. Not just the president, not just the White House staff, all of our allies, all the various executive branch agencies, the Congress. I think that one is pretty well cleaned up. And, in fairness, the president was up there for almost 2 hours. I suspect if you or I were doing a 2-hour press conference, we would probably have a word or two we would rather pull back. I'm sure he would love to pull those words back. I think we've done a reasonable job of doing so.
He was asked today a question by one of my former colleagues at Fox News. Listen to the question, the president's response, and then we'll go from there.
Why are you waiting on Putin to make the first move, sir?
Why are you waiting on Putin to make the first move was the question. Then the president said, what a stupid question. I want to ask you to comment on whether it's a stupid question. Is it a fair characterization of how President Biden has handled Putin in Ukraine?
I think what we've done is to carefully observe what Putin is doing. And he's walking down a checklist to invade. Put troops around border, check. Conduct cyber attacks, check. Withdraw Russians from the embassy in Kiev, check. Pretty hard to miss what's going on here. So at this stage, you have to ask yourself, do we wait for him to take the first shot, or do we do something preemptive? From where I sit right now, I think there's still some trade space in that argument. I would split the difference as follows. Flood the zone with offensive weapons that can be used to knock down Russians. Ensure that Putin understands there will be massive economic sanctions coming against him. Align the allies diplomatically. But I think we still are at a space, Leland, where we are looking Putin in the eye and saying, this is the last exit before the tunnel. Let's hope, like your last segment indicated, let's hope he has a glass of wine tonight and decides to stand down.
2009 to 2013, you were Supreme Allied Commander, greatest title on earth, perhaps. You dealt with Putin during that time, right after the invasion of the Republic of Georgia and the Russians. What was the couple of lessons learned that you hope President Biden understands in dealing with Putin right now?
John McCain, one of my heroes, was asked once, you've looked into Putin's eyes. What did you see? McCain said 3 letters. KGB. This whole thing devolves from understanding Vladimir Putin's background as a frustrated intelligence operative of the old Soviet Union. We need to understand that. So point 1 is it all starts with Vladimir himself. Point 2, keep the allies together. I think we've done a reasonable job at that, but boy, it's a multi-speed bicycle trying to ride NATO. Keep the allies together. And number 3, above all, face Putin with strength. There's an old Russian proverb, when you probe with a bayonet, if you encounter mush, keep going. If you hit steel, withdraw. Know that proverb, Mr. President.
Very good advice. There's some more advice in the sailor's bookshelf, 50 books to know the sea, and lessons from your time at sea. Admiral, we always appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Thank you. We wish it could be more often.
Next time, Leland. Yes. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.